We are back, you guys, with Herstory, the history of making through the Black female gaze, with your own Slates and Koffee, the host, Toy, Tequoia, and Nneka. We are here to nourish, educate, and empower. This is another powerful episode that needs to bring awareness, because rarely we hear, we may see PBS stories here and there. We may see documentaries here and there. Shout out to 1619 Project, Nicole Hannah-Jones. We love you. We adore you. This is kind of influenced this because we're diving back. Why is it so important that Black women tell their story for us, by us in this industry? I remember watching 12 Years a Slave, and why my 5-year-old came in there, I don't know. But she watched a snippet of it and she was like, I don't like it. She didn't like it because a couple of things happened, but children are very honest and very brutal. It was a story not written by us, which when you watch something passionate or watch something of excellence, like our guest Nikki said, you feel it, because now you're walking hand in hand with us and you're walking through our journey, our souls, our eyes, our feelings, our ancestors, our great grandparents. You're feeling the journey. You can have a reporter tell your story, but if he didn't put his feet in your shoes, it can never be as impactful as it came from the source. What do you guys think?
For me, it's funny that you said that your 5-year-old came in when you were watching 12 Years a Slave, because I was, I think I was in middle school, when they showed, what was that? Amistad. A little too young for that, in my opinion, and it was already a traumatic film to watch. But then, of course, as always, being the one Black person in the room, it just made it harder, because you knew that everyone was looking at you like, is she cracking yet? And it's so much to take onto your back. And I don't know so much about who wrote that story, what the goal was and all that jazz, but I know how it impacted me, and not in a very positive way. It gave me a very strong disdain for seeing ourselves in that light. I know I hear other Black people talking about the necessity of seeing those narratives, and more specifically by us, which I agree. But because it was just, it was just such a jarring thing for me. And it made me not really like that type of story, even though it is important to tell. And I can only imagine that, maybe not watching it at such a young age when you're not really prepared for such a thing, no warning, nothing. If it was told by people who already would understand how we would have received it, that's going to affect the way they write the story, the way they film it, how they act it out and everything. And yeah, that's just kind of what I think. And then more specific to women on top of that, definitely we're in a place right now where we do have more stories being told by Black people, by Asian people, by all people of color, which is beautiful. But I think a very beautiful thing would be more Black woman-led stories written by us. Just same reason as everyone else, because we have an interesting story to tell. And you can have people who tell it for you, which is okay, as long as it's accurate, but it's also, like you said earlier, way more genuine, authentic, and impactful when it's coming from the, as they say, from the horse's mouth itself. Not equating us to beasts and horses, but the idiom as it goes out of our mouth. It just makes it, in my opinion, a better story.
Yeah, for sure.
So, I went to film school, and every week we learn about a new great filmmaker, and they were, I say, overwhelmingly cis white males. And it took me up until maybe a couple of years ago to learn the name Maria P. Williams. And she was the first Black female producer who created her first film, I think in 1924.
Yeah.
Why didn't I learn about her?
Right.
Why? I went to film school from the 12th grade through college and never heard her name.
Wow.
That is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So it's important that we not only know the stories told by women of our generation and now and see ourselves reflected, but it's important to know the people who started off the industry way back then, and to see those archived films that they created. They are hidden and buried, and we have no idea the breadth and the wealth of beauty and creativity that they were able to accomplish in a time that was really segregated, was really limited. They were able to do so much. And I think that we need to revisit those old films, and that would help us to be able to, I guess, center ourselves as filmmakers and creatives now, because then we now know where we came from. They always say that saying, you don't know who you are or where you're going unless you know where you came from. Well, we know Spike Lee. I think it's time that we now know Maria P. Williams and women like her that paved the way for us to be able to be Ava DuVernay now, Julie Dash now, Toy Mason now, Tequoia Urbina now. They started it and they laid the groundwork for us. So yeah, it's super important.
And no one's gonna uphold our legacy in this industry better than a Black woman. Yeah. I'm not gonna turn to a white man to wanna uphold and preserve that memory. They should, because the same way you want us to learn the history of something, you gotta tell a full history. But at the end of the day, because of the way the world is, at this point in time, who's gonna uphold it better than us?
Right.
Yeah. They're not telling the story. I think Maria P. Williams, she was actually an advocate. She was an activist, and she did her first film, I think was out of Missouri, or don't quote me, but then she moved to California, and the movie came out, and then a year later, since she was an activist, she ended up dying back in her hometown. That's a whole nother movie. Like, it's another hidden gem. Right. Someone dying by what she stood up for. That's very important, because Ava is carrying the torch pretty well about what she believes in. But it was Maria P. Williams that paved the way for that. And like you mentioned, Tequoia, being in film school, or being in an all majority learning about film, I know I had to bring up Spike Lee films in a subject. Like, he wasn't the list upon the Scorseses and Francis Coppola and all the others. So me bringing up, everyone was like, they're young coming up, they're like, Spike, and I'm like, Spike Lee. Like, you can't hide my guy has done. He looked up to them as well. They all learned from each other, so you have to put him in that realm. But we have to teach our generation, like you said, where we come from, because if we don't know where we come from, we don't really know where we're at. So that comes to bring our next guest, Meosha, not Moesha, she says, but Meosha. She is a film director. She is a producer. She is a writer. Her background is PR. She had done an amazing thing. She's another powerful, strong woman in this industry. So we are going to bring on Meosha.
There she is.
How are you, Miss Fab under 30, Miss Fortune? I was like, whoa. Can I borrow $1? Like, really?
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We are honored to have you. There's so much to talk about, but please, we introduced you, Miss Director, Miss Writer, Miss Producer. I remember when we first met, it was actually at the beginning of COVID, and we were both talking about our passion projects, but you actually shot your passion project.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm in the final stages of it too. Like it's not as easy as we make it look.
Right.
So,
right. It's a whole process. So you're not done with it, but it's coming out.
Well, I shot a teaser, so I'm gonna drop the teaser. And I've been kind of taking some meetings, getting like feedback on it to see which, if I'm either just gonna sell it or if I'm gonna get, the money to develop it to the full vision that I see.
Okay, so today's topic, we're talking about Herstory, the importance of talking about film and TV on a Black woman's gaze and the history behind the Black woman. We want to bring up, just the ones that came before us. We were just bringing up Maria P. Williams and Tressie Saunders, all those women that paved the way for the Ava DuVernays. How much do you think Black filmmakers have evolved from then?
Oh, I think greatly. Just going back to the names you mentioned, the type of films they made were, definitely not on the level that we made today, and they kind of played more on the times back then. Yeah. But it's definitely evolved to now, we have like the FX effects and just different things like that. But just going back to telling our stories from that generation, I think, people are kind of afraid to really dive into that nowadays without it going like the slavery route. So,
right.
Yeah.
And why do you think we're afraid to talk about art, like a Black woman's issue?
Because I think we put the power in the studio's hands, or, we feel that no one wants to hear about Black women. But the same way there was Friends, we had Living Single, or we had Girlfriends. So there is a space for a story. And I just feel like even labeling it Black, it's just like, why can't it just be a story about women? Why does it have to be labeled, it's Black women? Why can't we tell we're the same as every woman has the same struggles, whether you're Black, white, Indian, like Mexican, brown, we all have the same issues. So I just feel like it shouldn't be labeled, but I just feel when it comes to selling and pitching, which I've experienced, certain powers that be feel it's no selling point for a Black story. So I think that's the fear of, the rejection of, no one wants to hear our stories, but clearly people do.
Right. And so if the majority doesn't want to hear our stories, I feel like it's still important as independent filmmakers to continue to tell our stories.
Exactly. I definitely agree with that.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that the Black woman stereotype still exists in TV and film?
I do to a certain extent. I mean, unfortunately, I feel there's always going to be stereotypes of Black women, of us, to other people outside of us, us, what we say is strong. Others can think of, she has an attitude, or she's loud, or she's that. But to us, it's like, it's passion. That's just our essence, So I just feel like there's always going to be those certain stereotypes, but it's up to us to control our narrative and, show why it may seem like I have an attitude. Like, you don't know what happened to me this morning, or, it's just like every Black woman, for every action, there's a reaction. So it's not always like, oh, she has attitude or she's loud. It's like, well, you don't know what set that off. But unfortunately, I always do think, yes, there always will be stereotypes about Black women.
Right. I feel like platforms like this are really necessary, because it's not like we shouldn't have to explain why I'm a strong Black woman or why I'm passionate about it. And it's because our voices are not heard. Issa did something called, I think, Raw on Apple TV, and it was a woman without a voice. And she was in a pitch meeting, and she was saying how she felt and pitching in. They're like, is she stuck? We don't hear her. But anyway, so they're talking over her. And I was like, wow, this is so powerful, because when you are in a boardroom or in a meeting or in a group of the majority, your voice is not heard. I mean,
yeah, I've experienced that a lot, being the only woman and woman of color on teams of men, where it's like, if I try to speak up, it's like, oh, well, no, well, so and so has these credentials, so what you say doesn't matter. And I'm like, well, I don't care what credentials he has. Like, he's not as talented as me, and he can't tell my story, so that is true. I've experienced that, but I feel like it's up to us to, we have to speak up on behalf of ourselves. Like, we can't let, them, the men or whoever, overtalk us. But yes, I saw that episode too, and I was cracking up because I'm like, oh my gosh, I know how that feels. Yes, but I just learned to just, put my foot down. And I was in a particular situation where I had a meeting about a show I worked on, and it was, like I said, I was the only Black female, and the actor we were trying to get on board, he's talking, and he was like, "You're pitching a show about women. Why is she not the spokesperson?" And I was like, see, that's what I'm saying. I was like, but they thought because they were men and because, one is, Oscar nominated, they felt like, and he was like, that's career suicide in the climate right now. Like, you're gonna pitch a show about women and not let her be the forefront. But it was their egos that wouldn't allow them to let me, and then when I spoke up clearly, I was like, hey, I think it's better, I'm a Black woman, we're kind of in right now, let me be the face. Oh, no, you don't have the credentials. And I was like, okay. So it took for them to hear it from another man, from them be like, okay, well, we'll make her the face of the project. And I'm just like,
wow.
It's one of those things. So yeah.
So I have a question. In terms of The Woman King, do you think that film would have been made had it been written by a Black woman?
That I don't know. I really don't know. But the fact that it was directed by a Black woman speaks volumes. But then the fact that it was snubbed, to me, sent a louder message, because I try to not, be biased, because like Issa said, I root for everybody Black when it comes to, the arts. And just, I try to watch the other films that are nominated just, to get a gauge of, the competition. And I just personally felt like they were snubbed. Yeah.
Wait, can I ask? I didn't know it wasn't written by a Black woman. Who was it written by?
2 white women.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
2 white
wow.
women. They have been trying to get the film made for years, and they finally were able to get it made. But yeah, I'm just interested to knowing why so many white males, white people in general, want to write stories about the Black experience.
And it's funny you say that, because me personally, I don't understand, especially when they use the N-word. I'm like, you felt okay writing that? But I was in a situation, I want to say almost 2 years ago, where I was up for a writing job for a show on HBO. And the EP of the show specifically said HBO does not want any more shows about Black women that aren't written by Black women. Mm-hmm. So I was like, well, maybe there's shifting in a different direction with that. But then again, the project has gone nowhere. So, I think they like to say the idea of diversity, but I really still think we have a long way to go with, the diversity in this. But going back to the question, I have no idea why white people feel like they can write our stories. I don't know.
Yeah. I think, we are one of the major consumers, Black women, so we are rushing to the movie theater. So at the end of the day, I think the execs really just look about dollars.
Yeah.
So if I can write it better because I went to Harvard Film, I know there's even Harvard Film, but if I went to a prestige film school, NYU, I can write it better because I have a couple Black friends. I got two. So
Right.
I can, you know.
It's from personal experience for me. It's been like, oh, like you said, oh, so-and-so has the credentials, or they have this and they have that. Who are you? I'm a Black woman. So who can tell my story, better than me? But it goes back to the whole, old Hollywood thing where they just feel like sometimes white is right. And it's really what I'm learning too. It's who you know and who knows you and who likes you. So a lot of these people, have relationships, or someone in their family is like head of Paramount or, Fox, and that's kind of how they get in, which is unfortunate, but that's why I love the indie route, because it's like you're allowed to be who you are and you don't have to kind of confine to those standards of, Hollywood, I guess.
Yeah, most definitely. And you got to be careful, but then again, we go back to Ava's, and then but there's a lot of other independent filmmakers like yourself and everyone on this panel that have a voice that haven't played the card, haven't played the game the way that should be played the game. That's why I give a lot of respect to Issa, because she says a lot of things that we're thinking. Yeah. So I think, us as independent filmmakers, we just have to continue to tell our stories and change the narrative. Again, there's a lot of entertainers that are now catching on to that by just taking the mic, taking up to social media, taking the platform and expressing how they feel. Because if they don't express how they feel, then the media and the press will express how they feel. Right. So those generations that are coming up, this is just another platform for them to see that if you have something to say it.
Right.
Somebody else will.
Exactly.
Now,
I'm gonna speak my mind. I'm like, what's for me is for me. I'm gonna be respectful with it, but I'm gonna speak my truth at all times.
Yeah. Yes. Now, considering the current movement of Black lives, how does the knowledge of our Black history, especially with women and learning about Henrietta, and we had just had a guest on talking about Black women in medical, how important it is for mass media for us to really do the research and share our stories when it comes to medical. A lot of older Black women, like Black men, don't go to the hospital because they don't trust the medical industry. So I think as creatives, especially again, this generation on social media platforms, we should probably stop focusing on what's entertaining and then focus on what can heal and what can educate and empower.
I agree. Yeah.
We need to get back to that.
Yeah, I think, and I'm guilty of it in the past. I think so many of us were like, oh, I need to win that Oscar, or oh, I need to win this Emmy. So we create things that we think the masses would like instead of creating stuff that I feel that the culture needs. And that's what I said. I'm striving to, tell our stories, because we are more than just like the slavery narrative. I'm so sick of seeing these slavery like films. I'm like, what about, like, there's a zillion, basically we created everything we use every day. Who's creating these stories about all the inventions we've done? So I feel, and like the medical thing as well, I feel like, let's tap into those stories of, our ancestors who created the everyday things that we use, are the people in the medical field, the people who invented the lights, the things that we made that was stolen from us. Like, let's put the truth of our history out there. Let's just stop trying to focus on, getting the popularity vote, So that's where I'm at. I just feel like if you share your truth, people will gravitate towards that.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, and not even before we came to America, but who were we before we came to America? We weren't all enslaved in Africa. Like, there were empires built. We lived a great life, like not in poverty. We grew our own foods. We had our own money. We had kings and queens that looked just like us. So why don't we ever see these stories? And it's important for us, Herstory, to tell these stories to our generations to come up.
Yeah, I totally agree, but I just feel like the issue with that is, you know, getting those films made. It's hard to, on an indie scale, the most thing that we lack most of the time is finance.
Right.
You know, we don't have a big studio behind us funding everything. So it's kind of hard to get the backing, you know, of that, you know. So I feel like if we did have, you know, more access to the financial resource, I feel we could make those films. But again, is a big studio gonna want to make a story about an African king? You know, are they, you know, but I feel like Black Panther kind of showed that it's possible. But then again, Disney was behind that, you know. So I just feel like if we have more people, you know, that are in position to, you know, instead of, you know, gatekeeping, you know, reach out and be like, hey, you know, let's create this story. Like, we want to see more of us on the screen, you know, let's shift the narrative. But I mean, we have a long ways to go, but maybe we can be that shift.
Yeah.
So.
Actually, funny you say that, because you said African King. They actually made a Showtime series. It's still being filmed right now, and about one of the Zulu kings in the past, Shaka King. But I will say, to just reiterate, I think it's that, but even more so across the board, kings, civilians, men and women alike. I think a lot of times it's easy to focus on, like, you know, the woman king or Zulu, forgive me if I'm saying it wrong, Shaka King, the Zulu Shaka King. I might be getting the terminology wrong.
Shaka Zulu.
Yeah. But like, I also want to know about the day-to-day. I want to know what that different African countries, the Jamaican islands, you know, what was their day-to-day? What are stories that we can hear about their culture and their life as well?
Right.
Yeah, I think those are important.
No, I agree. I totally agree with that. Yeah.
I think, you know, Toy was right. The industry is money driven. So even though they may have started off performative because somebody told them it's the in vogue thing to do to have a Black film or a Black network series or whatever, when they see the metrics, when they see the numbers of people who are purchasing tickets and watching, then that's going to make them want to do more and replicate that because they want to keep that money train coming. So with the Woman King and maybe even Jada Pinkett Smith's show that's coming out on Netflix, when they start seeing the numbers of people who are watching that, and not just Black numbers, but in general, the people universally who are interested in seeing Black content, maybe that will encourage them to put more money into the indie side. Maybe that'll encourage them to stretch their slate a little more so that it can incorporate more of our content. So I think that there is room for the indie director and the indie filmmaker to tap into that and continue to tell our stories, and hopefully the streamers, the networks, the studios will see that there's value in our stories and they'll put money to fund them. So fingers crossed.
Yeah.
We got to do our part and support. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too. Yeah, it starts with us. Like we have to support. That's why I said whenever I see like another Black woman or just someone Black doing something, like I'm all for it, because I know it's not easy. Even though it looks easy, it is not easy. So I salute anyone, you know, trying to do this or just even getting a project completed, you know.
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
I also feel like the more that we do support, the easier it becomes. You know, we also see this very, very much play out when it comes to Black businesses. Why is everything so expensive? because we don't have a whole lot of backing, but the more you buy, it becomes a cycle. You support us, we support you. I feel it's the same way. We keep asking for more narratives, for more types of Black content, and we get it. It may not be the same budget as like, you know, Narnia or some of these other mainstream shows, but it starts off by just watching them. And then once, like you said earlier, once they see the numbers, once they see the dollars, they start backing it. They're like, okay, this is a niche that we need to fill. And it becomes more of a mainstream, I hope.
Yeah, we have to stop waiting for a savior, stop waiting for another Malcolm, another leader. And like they said, we have to be the leaders, because we have to be the voices. We have to carry the torch. We got to keep creating these schools for us, by us, these banks, these, you know, stores. We got to buy our own, we got to support. So it's all about the mentality too of Black people. But I think if we continue to speak, continue to create platforms like this, continue to just not care about what the majority says and just do it like the majority of these youth, because they do whatever they want to do. They say whatever they want to say. So we have to gain that much of approach. They're also teaching us to just fight, just continue to fight.
Yeah.
And become an insurance amongst ourselves.
Yeah.
Facts.
Does anyone have any last questions before we wrap up this wonderful topic?
Any projects you want us to look out for?
I shot a pilot last year, well, a teaser pilot for a show I created that was based on my life. I kind of patterned myself after Ava. I was a publicist for like 10 plus years, worked with every celebrity athlete you can imagine. So I just started writing about it, and I created the show once. I kind of got jaded with PR, left PR, and kind of started getting into like the production side. Ironically, one of my clients was a director, and he kind of took me under his wing, saved me a ton of money going to film school, and like allowed me to shadow him on sets and let me kind of be hands-on. So that's pretty much how I learned to do things, and it just kind of spiraled from there. But with that being said, I wrote a story about, you know, my life as a publicist, and it's kind of like Entourage meets Scandal meets Ballers. It's called Publicity, and I'm going to be dropping the teaser in 2 weeks. So
on what platform?
I'm going to drop it on YouTube first, and then my Instagram, and just, you know, let's see where it goes.
Awesome. It's going to go far.
Thank you. I received that. It's been a labor of love, and just the way it came together. I know, and my thing is like, God gave me the vision. I wrote it back in 2016, and I barely shot it last year. But just the way it came together, and like the people who came together, like my friends who are actors, just the way the cast and the crew came together, it was like one of the best sets. And even like some people that were on set have been in big budget films, and they're like, this is one of the best sets I've ever been on. Like, it just like explode. So that's how I know it's God's hand in it, and I just know God wouldn't give me the vision unless it was supposed to go far. So I just have to do my part and push it, and then, you know, I know it's going to go places.
And what are your socials?
It's my name. It's Meosha Davis, Meosha Davis. That's pretty much my handle on everything. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter. I'm trying to get into the TikTok a little bit, but I'm getting into it slowly, but same thing. It's my TikTok is m.period, and my Twitter is m.period too.
Wow. Well, big congratulations on that. Everyone, please follow her on all platforms. Look out for Publicity. Congratulations on being a new mommy. I remember my kids today asked me, Mommy, where's your superpower? And I'm like, I do everything. So congratulations. You are a filmmaker. You are a mommy. You are a soon-to-be wife. Yes, I stand your account sometimes. So congratulations.
Coming together. That's how I know it's everything is aligning. It's alignment. It's God's timing is perfect. And I feel like I'm in alignment with everything. So Yes.
That's how it happens.
It's
It's
time.
your time, and we are first here. We're excited. We broke you first, girl. So congratulations. Thank you so much for we enjoyed having you. We enjoyed this discussion. It is much needed. Thank you for taking a sip with us and Slates.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, that's it, guys. Slates and Koffee has done it again. We're here to nourish, educate, and empower. Again, don't forget to join us at Slates and Koffee on all handles. Don't forget to take a sip and get educated. Bye.